This is the A to Z podcast. Expert insights on leadership, business, real estate, investing, and growth.
Let's also talk about emotional fitness. One misunderstanding that I have seen also is that there is a misunderstanding that we all should have the same kind of emotional intelligence profile. Do you think a nurse and a soldier, maybe a pastor or a priest or someone who is in law enforcement, do you think they should all have the same kind of emotional intelligence profile? Should they express their emotion the same way? Because I get pushback sometimes. They tell me, you know what, I'm in this kind of business and I cannot have this kind of emotions. And of course, I tell them that you don't need to. But I think we want to clear this thing up, and I'm sure you could help us clarify that. Do we all need to have the same emotional fitness?
I mean, I think various professions demand various levels of emotional fitness. You and I don't want to be in an airplane with a pilot who in the middle of turbulence is freaking out like we are in our seats, right? Most of your listeners have been on an airplane. They've been through a bit of turbulence. It's not a good feeling because we're not in control. We don't know what's happening in the cockpit or in the sky. And so we depend on our pilot being emotionally at the highest level of emotional fitness. We depend on that with the surgeon in the middle of his equipment malfunctioning when he's doing surgery, performing surgery, life and death surgery. So you're right that there's different levels of emotional fitness required. But if you think about it, we can all be at similar levels of emotional intelligence. The intelligence comes in us being good at discerning when one emotion is required more than another. If you're the doctor who's going to sit down, a number of stories I hear in the healthcare space. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a surgeon a couple of weeks ago, and she was about to perform surgery on a woman who was, I think, 8 months pregnant. And she's in the room with the woman's husband and another surgeon who apparently doesn't have very good emotional mastery, and this guy was saying that, they found out that she had a tumor that was hiding behind the baby. So, and they were going to have to prematurely essentially get the baby out so that they could address the tumor. And the way the male surgeon began talking to this mother and her husband, first thing out of his mouth was something like, you know that we have a problem, right? Like, I mean, it was so bad that my friend had to interrupt him and just sort of literally shut him down. And because he was about to deliver some shocking news, they didn't know that she had a tumor. They were about to tell her. And his first thought was fear mongering, right? Because for him, he's a doer. Let's get this tumor out. Let's not thinking, but you're dealing with a human being in front of you who is in the room thinking she's having a baby. And now you're about to tell her that she also has cancer she's got to deal with. So the point is, emotional intelligence is, there are times when I need to be more emotionally steady. There'll be times when you need to be emotionally steady, maybe dealing with your kid in a particular situation. There'll be times when your emotional steadiness there's no high stakes, so you can just do what be who you are. So for the people who say, well, I can't afford, like a soldier in Iraq or something, I can't afford to bring emotions this moment. Yes, you should afford to bring the mastery of whatever you're feeling. See, we can't suppress what we feel. If a soldier is holding an AR-15 and he's being ambushed, of course he feels fear, but the idea of pretending like you do not feel what you feel creates a problem, right? Because then you miss the chance to use your emotional mastery skills to harness that fear in a productive way. To be able to say to yourself, I am feeling fearful in this moment, so I'm going to pull on whatever resource you have that helps you manage. In spite of how fearful I feel, I've got to focus on the task at hand, right? Versus the person who's pretending the emotion doesn't exist, because you complicate things, because, the brain isn't wired for uncertainty. So it's going to fight you in an unproductive way. Then the person who acknowledges, wow, this turbulence is scary, the pilot, but he's not getting on the intercom and sharing that with us in a fearful way, because he understands he's got to keep everybody calm while he rides the waves of change. So emotional intelligence is the most necessary skill for all of us, no matter what profession you are in, we have to get good at mastering our emotions, or else they'll master us in ways we don't always want.